back with a new video. This is already our 4th episode and we will keep on uploading new videos. For now, let's talk about the Article 2 of the 1987 Philippine Constitution, which is the Declaration of Principles and State Policies. This article is divided into 28 sections. The sections 1 to 6 are the Declaration of Principles, and the sections 7 to 28 are the state policies. Let's start with the first section. Section 1 states that the Philippines is a democratic and republican state. Sovereignty resides in the people and all government authority emanates from them. To understand this clause, let's define the words democracy and republic. Democracy comes from the Greek words demos, which means people, and kratos, which means rule. Therefore, democracy is a government that is run by the people. On the other hand, republic comes from the Greek word politeia, which means the rights of the citizen. A republic is a government system in which the power rests with the nation's citizens. Under the system, people can choose leaders to represent them and make the laws. So what's the difference between a democracy and a republic? The major difference between a republic and a democracy is that a republic is a form of government, whereas a democracy is an ideology that shapes how a government is run. The present political system of the Philippines is a democratic republic. Democratic because the sovereignty or the supreme power to govern resides in the entire Filipino people. The Filipino people has the right to choose the government they want, define the powers it shall hold, abolish at any time, and form a new one. However, if all the Filipino people would act as leaders, the country would be in chaos. So the Philippines adopted a republic form of government in which the power to govern the country is given to the elected officials who will represent the will of the Filipino people. The elected officials can only exercise the powers delegated to them by the Filipino people, who are still the ultimate source of political power and authority. Let's move on to our fan fact for this episode. The Philippines, under the new constitution, is not just a representative government, but also shares some aspects of direct democracy, such as initiative and referendum. Initiative is a process whereby people directly propose and enact laws. On the other hand, referendum is an election device in which a law can either be accepted or repealed based on the popular vote of the people. That's all for our fan fact for this episode. Let's move on to section 2. This section is divided into 3 parts. The first part is the renunciation of war as a national policy. This means that the Philippines will never start war with another country. The state can only declare war for self-preservation and territorial integrity. To make it short, just remember, the Philippines will never have an aggressive war, only defensive war. The second part is the adaptation of the international law as part of the Philippine law. Let's first define international law. It is a body of laws governing nations in dealing with one another. The Philippines follows the doctrine of incorporation, which states that the rules of international law form part of the law of the land and no legislative action is required to make them applicable in the country. However, the doctrine dictates that the rules of international law are given equal standing and are not superior to the national legislative enactments. For example, if there is a conflict between our Constitution and the international law, our Constitution will always prevail. The last part is the adherence to the policy of peace, equality, justice, freedom, cooperation, and amity with all nations. This simply means that the Philippines seeks peace and friendly relationship with the rest of the world. Moving on to Section 3, the supremacy of civilian authority. The Constitution states that the civilian authority at all times is supreme over the military even when martial law is declared. Civilian authority simply means the supremacy of law, because authority under our constitutional system can only come from the law. The President of the Republic of the Philippines is the head of the civilian government and not at the same time the Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces of the Philippines. The AFP is the protector of the people and the state. It cannot be the suppressor of the liberties of the people. Next is Section 4. This section talks about the role of the government. The government must serve and protect the people. This simply means that the people are the masters, while the government officials and employees are the servants. However, the government may call upon the people to render personal, military, or civil service. Civil service refers to any service for the defense of the state other than the military. This clause was the basis for implementing the military education in Philippine schools. It starts in elementary days through scouting. Then in high school, we have the CAT, or the Citizens Army Training. And in college, we have the Reserve Officers Training Corps, or the ROTC. These programs prepare the students for the defense of the state. Now here are the conditions in rendering the military and civil service. First, it must be for the defense of the state. Second, it is compulsory. This means that everyone is required to render the service. Third, it is personal. This means that one cannot ask another person to perform the service asked from him. In other words, a substitute is not allowed. You need to do it in person. And last, it must be under the conditions provided by the law. This is to avoid the abuses from the authorities. Moving on to Section 5, the duty of the government. The government has the duty to keep peace and order in the society and to protect the lives, the rights, and properties of the citizens. It does this by making laws and enforcing them. Only when order, security, and life worthy of human dignity are established and maintained can people truly enjoy the blessings of democracy. Let's move on to Section 6, the separation of the church and the state. The Constitution mandates a wall of separation between the church and the state that is inviolable. This means that it must be respected and cannot be removed nor ignored. The church cannot interfere with the state. Likewise, the state cannot also interfere with the matters of the church. The Constitution also mandates the state to have no official religion. It cannot support a religion and cannot punish the people for their religious beliefs. This was included in our Constitution to prevent what happened during the Spanish rule in the Philippines when the church manipulated the state. Section 7. The pursuit of an independent foreign policy. Foreign policy, also called the international relations policy, is a set of goals about how the country will work with other countries, economically, politically, socially, and militarily. Independent foreign policy simply means that no other state should be permitted to dictate how the Philippines should behave in relation to other states. No country should be able to boss us around when it comes to how we deal with other countries. The President of the Philippines acts as the chief foreign policy implementer, and the Department of Foreign Affairs, or DFA, is the prime agency responsible for the pursuit of the state's foreign policy. Next is Section 8, the freedom from nuclear weapons. The aim of this section is to forbid the making, storing, manufacturing, or testing of nuclear weapons, devices, or their parts in our country. However, it does not prohibit the use of nuclear power for medicine, agriculture, and other benefits. Also, if the national interest requires, storing of nuclear weapons may be permitted. What do we mean by this? To understand this part, let's define national interest. It is a public declaration of a country's needs and intention based on assessment of the current situation. In other words, if the Philippine government feels that it's good for the country, storing of nuclear weapons may be permitted. Section 9. The promotion of a just and dynamic social order. The state shall promote a just and dynamic social order that shall ensure the prosperity and independence of the nation and at the same time free the people from poverty. This objective can only be achieved by the following policies that will: first, promote full employment; second, a rising standard of living; third, an improved quality of life for all; fourth, sufficient services in the fields of health, education, housing, and a lot more. Let's move on to Section 10, the promotion of social justice in all phases of national development. Social justice is the equal access to wealth, opportunities, and privileges within a society. The state is mandated to give preferential attention to the welfare of the less fortunate members of the community, specifically the following people. First, the poor; second, the underprivileged; third, the uneducated; and fourth, the disabled. Next is Section 11, the promotion of human rights. The state values the dignity of every human person and guarantees full respect for human rights. Any torture against human being is constitutionally prohibited. The Constitution also set up the Commission on Human Rights that will investigate the violation of human rights and adopt or take the appropriate measures to protect the rights of every human being. Moving on to Section 12, the family as a basic social institution. It is the duty of the state to protect and strengthen the family as a basic autonomous social institution, and it shall equally protect the life of the mother and the life of the unborn from conception. Under this provision, the government cannot interfere in matters involving the family nor pass laws which may weaken it as a social unit. This is also the reason why abortion is illegal in our country. If you legalize abortion, this would violate this clause. However, if the life of the mother is endangered, the life of the unborn may be sacrificed, and this cannot be considered an abortion. Sections 13 to 14, the role of youth and women. The Constitution recognizes the vital role of youth and also the role of women in nation building. Sections 15 to 16, the right to health is recognized, as well as the right to live in a healthy and balanced ecology. Section 17. The state shall give priority to education, science and technology, arts, culture, and sports in order to achieve the following goals. First, foster patriotism and nationalism. Second, accelerate social progress. Third, promote total human liberation and development. The authors of this Constitution strongly believed that a human being must be liberated from illiteracy, self-centered desires, colonial mentality, bad habits, and other negative attitudes. Next is Section 18. Labor is recognized by the state as a primary social economic force. The state must protect the rights of the workers and promote their welfare. The state must also see to it that all labor laws are faithfully enforced. Section 19. The pursuit of self-reliant and independent national economy. Independent national economy is an economy which is free from dependence on other countries. In order to build an independent national economy, it is essential to adhere to the principle of self-reliant economy, or the state of not requiring any aid, support, interaction, or trade with the outside world. A self-sufficient economy does not trade with other countries because it can produce its own goods and services using its own natural resources, sustainable agriculture, renewable energy, and efforts of its own people. Next is Section 18. Labor is recognized by the state as a primary social economic force. The state must protect the rights of the workers and promote their welfare. The state must also see to it that all labor laws are faithfully enforced. Section 19. The pursuit of self-reliant and independent national economy. Independent national economy is an economy which is free from dependence on other countries. In order to build an independent national economy, it is essential to adhere to the principle of self-reliant economy, or the state of not requiring any aid, support, interaction, or trade with the outside world. A self-sufficient economy does not trade with other countries because it can produce its own goods and services using its own natural resources, sustainable agriculture, renewable energy, and efforts of its own people. Let's move on to Section 20. The Constitution recognizes the importance of the private sectors in the development of the country. The state is commanded to encourage free enterprise and to give incentives to those who want to invest in the country. Section 21. The Constitution mandates the state to promote comprehensive rural development and agrarian reform because this is very significant for the economy of our country. More than half of the population is employed in the agricultural sector. Reforms are important because they protect the rights of the farmers. Next is Section 22. The rights of indigenous cultural communities must be recognized. Indigenous cultural minorities are those non-dominant groups having their own religious, ethnic, or linguistic traditions that are different from the rest of the population. The existence of these various cultural groups makes it necessary for the government to adopt certain provisions which will promote national unity and development. Moving on to Section 23, the promotion of NGOs and POs. The state shall encourage non-governmental, community-based, or sectoral organizations. The Philippines is one of the countries with the largest and most dynamic NGOs and POs. Let's differentiate NGO and PO. NGO stands for non-governmental organizations. These are the voluntary groups of individuals or organizations that are usually not affiliated with the government. They are formed to provide services or to advocate a public policy. An example of NGO is the Philippine Red Cross. On the other hand, people's organizations, or POs, are members of the community who are organized to respond to their common interest. Most of the time, the members of these organizations are from the same locality. Examples of these are neighborhood associations and women's credit associations. The state is required to encourage these organizations because recent events have shown that they help promote the welfare of the people and are active contributors to the political, social, and economic growth of the country. Section 24 is about the role of communication and information. The role of communication and information is for the first time given a constitutional recognition because a balanced flow of information and communication is vital to the national progress. Whether in war or in peace, an effective communication and information is an imperative necessity. Let's move on to Section 25, the autonomy of local governments. The Constitution of the Philippines recognizes the importance of local government. It provides them local autonomy. To understand local autonomy, let's define the word autonomy. It comes from the Greek words auto, which means self, and nomos, which means law. When combined, it means live under one's own laws. Therefore, local autonomy is the ability of local governments to set up their own rules in order to have an independent impact on the well-being of their citizens. Section 26. The prohibition of political dynasties. Political dynasty is a succession of rulers from the same family or line. The Constitution strongly prohibits political dynasty because it often results through graft and corruption. Equal opportunities must be followed from appointments to designation in public offices. Such appointments must be based on merits only. Next is Section 27, Honesty and Integrity in Public Offices. The state must maintain honesty and integrity in public offices. A government office is a public trust, and it must not be betrayed. Unfortunately, our government offices have always suffered from a bad image. Thus, the state is mandated to take positive and effective measures against graft and corruption. Last is Section 28, the policy of full public disclosure. This provision promotes the right of the people to know any transaction entered by the government. This policy covers the utilization of public funds and properties so that the people would know where their taxes go. However, it does not include confidential matters which may endanger the state. Before I end this video, let's take a look at the important concepts for this episode. These are the following: Republic, Democracy, Doctrine of Incorporation, Civil Service, Civilian Authority, Foreign Policy, Political Dynasty, Social Justice, Indigenous Cultural Communities, POs, and NGO. That's all for this video. Please don't forget to like and subscribe to this channel. Also, if you have friends, don't forget to share and hit the bell button so you will be notified when we upload new videos. See you in our next video.